everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I feel like it has been quite a while since I've gotten to really chat with you guys. I went from making videos 3 times a week to doing 2 times a week, again back to my regular schedule this month, but added into all of that, I've been prepping for my convention, so a lot of those videos have been art videos and not my typical either swatch with me or tutorials or review videos, so I am really excited to be bringing you this video today. We only have a couple more weeks, so I'm going to be under this really tight time crunch. I'm going to a wedding this upcoming weekend, and then the convention the following weekend, and we'll need a little bit of recovery time, but hopefully in April we can get back to some of the more detailed reviews. But for today, I have a swatch with me video for you, which I know that you guys have really been enjoying, and this one comes courtesy of another wonderful artist and YouTuber. Miss Oto strikes again. You might remember her from my Swatch with Me Holbein video, where she sent me these 3 plastic palettes full of very generous samples of Holbein watercolors along with all of their pigment information. I was so grateful for her sending this to begin with, and then when we were talking about other Swatch with Me videos, she also alluded to the fact that she was picking up a Schmincke dot card for herself, and that she also snuck in an order for me as well. So I want to send a huge thank you to her for sending this. This is something that I've been wanting to try for a long time, but it's quite expensive here in the US. She was able to find it for a bit cheaper, so from the bottom of my heart, thank you for sending this my way. We're going to be taking a look at this in just a moment, but she also had a 3rd palette of a surprise for me in that she made her own Sennelier full set dot card. Now, I did not know that she was making this or sending this my way, but she has mapped out all of the colors that they offer in their line, aside from their Opera Rose, which is no longer available in a tube, and made it into a dot chart for me. So we're going to be taking a look at this in another video, but I just wanted to give a huge shout out to her. As always, her channel will be listed in the description below, so you can go ahead and check that out. Now, if you're not familiar with our Schmincke watercolors here, they offer 2 different dot cards, I believe, but this is the 140 dot card chart. I always say that wrong. So the samples in here are quite small, and they have all the pigment information written very small underneath. There's a very sturdy separator in here. I don't know if it came with that or if Oto slipped it in there. So either way, that was a really nice benefit to have so that the paints don't stick together. And we have lots and lots of paint to go through here. I also want to say that the company recently sent me, I was inquiring to them about the dot cards, and they sent over a brochure, at least, with all of the names for all the pigments, both in, I assume, German and English, with their pigment information. So there's a booklet here as well, but of course nothing is a substitute for the real thing. So instead of writing out my own sheet that I've been doing with the other ones with the large swatches on there, because there's 140 colors here, I'm just going to go ahead and do them in the pamphlet, but I'll zoom in nice and close so that you can see that. If you are not familiar with my Swatch with Me videos, you might have already gathered from this very lengthy intro that these are very laid back, slow-paced videos, and if you'd like some more concise reviews, I do have reviews for Schmincke watercolors here on the channel, so I'll put those links in the description below for you if you would like the quick, short versions of this. For the rest of you who want to be joining me for this, sit back, relax, and I assume we'll be here for at least an hour and a half or 2 hours. Alright, so I went ahead and put in opacity lines with some permanent ink for each of the swatches here, and the rest of the information is here as well, from their light fastness information to, let's see, the triangles are for staining and non-staining colors, while the squares are for their transparency. So an open square is completely transparent, a filled-in square is opaque, and the one that is divided in half either means semi-transparent or semi-opaque, depending on if one of the triangles is filled in. Light fastness scale goes from 1 to 5, And then there are some other symbols in here, such as the, let's see, the number surrounded by the circle, that little itty bitty tiny number that you might not even be able to see. That is the price grouping that they are in. The thing that this does not have on it is the actual pigment information themselves, but if you do have one of these brochure guides on hand, from what I can tell, I mean, I didn't check every single color, but I checked several sections throughout the color range, and it does look like they are in order so that the dot card matches the binder, so I can go through and kind of tell you what the pigments are as we move along. And I'm hoping to get through both sides of this tonight, although I am starting this recording fairly late in the evening, so if I do need to take a break and head to bed, we might pick up the other part later on. So the first color that we're starting here is titanium white, and this is going to be the more opaque version, although of course I always recommend using a white gouache if you do want to use that with watercolor. I don't think that the white in watercolor is all that helpful. Next here you can barely even see this little dot. I can't even barely see it in person. This is the Chinese white, and it is more transparent, so I really am not sure what this is, other than if you were mixing some pastel colors perhaps, but I just like to use the white of the paper. So we're going to have to wait for all of these samples until they dry to really see their final opacity, but you can see here starting off that the titanium white is more opaque. I think we have the whole row in here. Just want to make sure it's on the screen for you guys and you can see everything. Next up we have titanium yellow, and this is PY53. I know that Sade from Sadie Saves the Day loves this color. She talks about it a lot on her channel, and I recently got a sample of this actually from Oto as well in her first package that she sent me of a tube of this from Winsor & Newton, and I still need to use it in practice and in different paintings, but it's a very beautiful, soft, cool yellow. Next up is lemon yellow, and let's see here, that is our standard PY3. And so far these are pretty easy to kind of reactivate here. I can tell that some of the colors are going to give us more trouble as we kind of move on. There's some that are very, very dry and that I expect that we will need to warm up a little bit more. So you can see here next to the lemon yellow, this is the typical cool yellow that you're probably used to seeing in a lot of standard set recommendations or even starter sets, and this titanium yellow is so much more pale and pastel-like, I guess is the only way I can really describe it. It's a slight, blah, blah, blah. Can't even talk. We're only on the fourth color, Denise, get your act together. This is more opaque than the other yellows are, but I did get to try mixing it with some other tones from the Winsor Newton tube that I have, and it's a really beautiful color. Still really new to me though. Here we have cadmium yellow lemon, so this should be our PY35, and checking that is indeed the case. This is going to be another opaque color. Let me take a sip of water, I feel a tickle coming on. Alright, then we've got our chromium yellow hue. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Chromium yellow hue lemon. There we go. This font is actually very, very small in person. Hard to keep everything straight here. So this actually appears to be pretty transparent compared to the other yellows that we have tried, and this is, oh, I should have known. It's one of my favorites. This is PY75. So in Daniel Smith's line, this is just called lemon yellow, and it differs from the other lemon yellow that a lot of other places use. It is, in Daniel Smith, it's a cooler version of this PY3. You guys, I'm sorry. Let's start over. Compose myself. It is a cooler yellow than PY3, not a version of PY3. But in Schmincke's version, it does appear to be warmer. Here we've got vanadium yellow. I'm probably saying that wrong. I'm pretty much guaranteeing that I'm saying that wrong. This is similar in hue to our standard PY3 lemon yellow, but it is more opaque, and this is made from PY184. Oh, is this bismuth yellow? Highly opaque, slightly greenish, cool yellow. Heavy metal-free alternative to cadmium yellow lemon. Good in mixtures. The Schmincke pamphlet has a lot of really nice information, and I would read every single color, but we would be here for ages. So I'll just read them if I encounter a pigment that I'm not as familiar with to try and help you guys out with that. This next one is Cadmium Yellow Light, and that is made again from PY35, the same as our other cadmium yellow up here. This is called Pure Yellow, and this is PY154, and this is my favorite yellow. This is my favorite cool yellow. This is my favorite yellow in general. It's a nice middle-of-the-road version, and I hadn't seen Schmincke's before, so I'm very excited to see it in their line. It looks like it's going to be slightly opaque for them, which is accurate compared to their rating for it. Has pretty good light fastness rating, and overall I just think it's a really beautiful color. Next up we have the Areolan Hue, and this is made from PY151. Again, this is a little bit opaque, but it's another beautiful mid-range yellow. It looks like the difference between these are going to be that the Areolan is slightly more opaque. This is rated as semi-transparent. This is actually rated as transparent, so I wonder if it dries with less opacity. We've got Cadmium Yellow Medium here. And I would say here's where we're going to start to lean into the warmer yellows. You can definitely tell the hints of orange here versus the hints of green in these colors, and then these ones being more in the middle. I'm using the sheet that came in the set to rest my hand on, so I'm not dragging around the other blobs of paint. But this Chromium Yellow Hue Light is PY153 and PY155 together in a mixture. My initial thoughts is that it's a bit of a dirty version, like it looks muddier than a Nickel Azo Yellow, but kind of along that same hue. I don't know how I feel about that one. Flip to our next page here. Okay, the next one is Nickel Azo Yellow, so we will see here. They call theirs Transparent Yellow, but it is still PY150. I have considered putting on music in the background of these. I can't do, obviously, music that I would normally listen to while I'm painting because that would be copyright infringement, but there are copyright-free tracks. So if that's something that you're interested in me putting on rather than listening to me drone on, then let me know. But also feel free to put on some music in the background as well if that's more relaxing for you, or muting me altogether if you don't care about the repetitive nature of the things that I'm saying about different paints here. Alright, so here's the Nickel Azo Yellow. This one definitely has more of a glow to it than this one. This one is more yellow, I would say, than this one. This is more of a gold color. I still don't love this. I would rather have some cleaner versions of yellow and mix this type of color if I needed it. Then we've got, this is Turner's Yellow, and this is made from a pigment that I actually haven't seen very much. This is PY216, and they just simply list it as a light semi-opaque orange yellow. To me, that's very much along the lines of Naples yellow, although we do have some Naples colors along with the earth tones on the next page that we'll get to. Here is the Quinacridone Gold Hue, and I know some of you have asked me about this color from them, and I don't think I had tried it before now. This reminds me, at least in its wet form, of Da Vinci's, which tends to be much more orange than some of the other Quinacridone hues, but we'll have to see how it goes once it dries, but it is incredibly transparent. Their version is made from PY150 and PR101, so it's a little bit of a different mixture than some of the other Quinacridone Gold hues on the market. This is Chromium Yellow Hue Deep, and this is their PY65. So the same as Hansa Yellow Deep from Daniel Smith. Most brands have this in some version or another, depending on what they call it. Da Vinci, I think when we just looked at them, they have two versions. They have a Hansa Yellow Deep, and they also have an Arlide Yellow. This is Cadmium Yellow Deep, and this is going to be a similar hue, but it will be more opaque. And it's made from PY35 and PO20. So that's cadmium yellow and cadmium orange together, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sure we'll find that out in a few color swatches when we get to the oranges. Next we have Indian Yellow, and this is made from PY110 and PY154. This is definitely more transparent than the one that came before it. And I would say it probably has a little bit more clarity than our Chromium Yellow Hue Deep. So this one is slightly brighter. It looks like it's a little bit more light fast. And the other ones are pretty comparable in terms of its stats and whatnot. Hey guys, sorry about that. I keep coughing and my throat is really dry, so I'm worried about coughing in your ear and making a lot of noise. So I'm going to go ahead and re-record this little section in terms of the audio, but the two colors that I did while I was having my little coughing fit were yellow orange, and this is PY110, and then next door we have cadmium orange light, which is PO20, as we were speculating earlier from my memory for the other combination that we had earlier. So the cadmium is definitely more opaque, but I still feel like the yellow orange has a bit of heaviness that I don't particularly love. And if you're new to the channel, I don't typically use cadmium colors in my watercolor painting, both for their toxicity's sake, but also because they feel a little bit heavy to me and I prefer more transparent watercolors. So next here we have Chromium Orange Hue. And this is, find my place again, PO62. So this is our Azo orange that we've seen from other brands. This is a favorite of Victor and Tiffany. It's a very, very bright, bold orange color. I'm trying to get the gradient right. There was too much water that got set down and I don't want it to be over flooded with water there. Next we have Cadmium Orange Deep, which is back to PO20, and we talked about this in the Holbein video as well, but a lot of these cadmium colors appear like they can be treated in different ways, similarly to like PBR7, that you get different hues out of them based on how they're processed. So even though it's still the same pigment, it's going to result in a different hue depending on how the manufacturers treat it. This version is definitely more saturated than this other one here. This is definitely a lighter, more yellow version, while this is darker and slightly leaning red. Next up we have Transparent Orange, which is PO71. So in Daniel Smith, this is Transparent Pyrrole Orange. Core also has another version that is incredibly different in hue, Core's version is very, very bright orange, similar kind of in between these two, while Daniel Smith's is deep, almost red. And I think off the top of my memory, this is right in between. This one definitely seems less saturated than Daniel Smith's version, but has more warmth than the Core's version. Saturn Red is one that I know people have been a little bit confused over the name because it is definitely not red. It is very, very much an orange. It's a very, very bright orange. And this is made from PO64. Let's see if it says anything. It just says a cadmium-free, semi-transparent orange. So I don't know if they're looking at this one to be maybe a replacement for the Cadmium Orange Deep, although this one is a different hue. It's much redder. Much more red? I think I've asked that question in other videos. All right. Here we've got Cadmium Red Orange, which again is made from PO20. Sorry about that. So this is the same orange as this version and this version. This, I would say, we're definitely coming into red territory. Wondering, I guess Schmincke uses, whoops, dropping water everywhere, guys. Schmincke uses a G if it granulates, so let's see, have we run into any yet? It would be listed before the light fastness rating. So it doesn't look like we've got any granulating color so far. This one isn't listed as granulating, but there is definitely a texture to it that is not flat. Next we have Permanent Red Orange, which is PO62 and PR242. This is a cadmium-free alternative to cadmium red orange with light fast organic pigments. I like this version better, to be completely honest. I think it has more richness to it. It's more transparent. We'll see how it dries, but I definitely prefer that over this pigment, whether or not it had extra chemicals in it, you know. Next we have Permanent Red, which is, oh, it's interesting. It is a combination of pigments. This is PR242 again with PO62. Okay, so it's the same two pigments as this one before it, but they're listed in the opposite order. So it means it has more of the red pigment and less of the orange pigment. This is like a seriously fire engine red, red color. It's so, so bright. The reason I was surprised is a lot of permanent reds are like pyro red, and that is a single pigment color, but I'm sure we have plenty more reds to go to explore on this chart. I am going to go ahead and just bump up our exposure here. Hopefully that didn't jostle around the camera too much, but I think you can see better now. Then we've got Cadmium Red Light. So we are onto our PR108. I suspect if this is like our other brands that we've looked at, that we'll have a couple versions of this pigment. But these again are cadmium colors. The next one is Germanium Red. It is a, and I'm quoting from their manual here, a very intense, semi-transparent and warm red, darker and more yellow than vermilion light, which we'll see on the next row. I could be wrong, but I think this is one of their new colors. I didn't check before I started recording, but we did those 35 colors at the beginning of 2017. And I think that was one of the new ones, although that could be entirely incorrect. But the Germanium Red is the PR242 on its own that we saw in the previous two mixtures. Here we have vermilion, which is made from PR 255, and this is a metal-free alternative to a traditional vermilion. It's an organic pigment with a good light fastness and an opacifying characteristic. That's interesting. They rate this as being completely opaque. I am not seeing, I mean, I would definitely say it's semi-opaque, but I don't think it's more covering than some of our cadmium colors, but maybe they dry similarly? We shall see. Alright, on the next line we've got that vermilion light that it was comparing this germanium red to. And vermilion light is made from PR 188. This is the lightest and most yellow transparent red that they have. It is more reddish than the transparent orange though. And this reminds me a lot of a Quinacridone coral color, the PR 209, which I don't know if we're going to get to that on the next sheet or not. It's not on the rest of this one, but it's definitely transparent, definitely transparent and very, very bright. Next is Scarlet Red, which is PR 254. This is the Pyrrole Red I was talking about earlier. So they just call theirs by a different name. This is our very bright middle, I guess slightly cooling, and if we had to compare it next to these orangey colors. But I still think it's a very middle of the road red. And actually, after swatching this one out, before I said this one looked like a fire truck, and it did when it was wet, but as it dried, it definitely shifted a little bit more orange. So I'd say this one leans a little bit more towards that brighter color. And I keep flopping around water droplets, and it is driving me crazy. I hope it doesn't mess up the swatches too bad. I think you can still see this on the frame. The Quinacridone Gold hue did dry more brown. So that would be more similar to Quinacridone Gold, but when it was wet it definitely had that orange characteristic to it. So it'll be interesting to see how that works in actual paintings. Here is Cadmium Red Medium, once again made from PR 108. See, that's very, very opaque as of right now, but we might get some more transparency as it dries. Here's Quinacridone Red Light, and this is made from PR 207. It's transparent, but characterizes less yellow than the vermilion light that we have at the start of this row. And I think that that is an accurate statement. Then we've got Transparent Red Deep. This is made from PR 144. That is a beautiful color. It's so vivid. They list this as their warmest transparent dark red. That's beautiful. I don't think I have any 144 like in my main palette, or I don't even know if I've seen it much across different samples, but I'm gonna have to look into that one. The last one that I have in this row and on this page in the little booklet is Cadmium Red Deep, and this is once again PR 108, but this is a very, very different shade of that color. It's so rich, and on the brown side of things, all right, I'm gonna scoot. Let's move our water entirely since I cannot be trusted. Keep it down next to me. We're going to flip the page in our booklet here. And next we have Perylene Maroon. This is made from PR 179. I've been talking about this color a lot lately and talking about it in the favorite series, and I know a lot of you guys really enjoy this color. It's beautiful. This color over here is calling to me though. I haven't used it more than I use, which one was it? Was it the Scarlet Red? That was PR 254, I believe. This is the normal middle red that I use, but I really like that one. It's definitely cooler in tone, so if I already have a cool red, I don't know how useful it would be, but boy, am I curious. Let me know if you use that color, and if you do, how you enjoy it. This is Perylene Dark Red. So Perylene Maroon, Perylene Dark Red. And this is made with PR 178. If I'm not mistaken, I feel like this is a more red version of the other pigments I've seen using this color, but I could be wrong. Next we have Alizarin Crimson, which is their original Alizarin Crimson, known to be quite fugitive as indicated by our single star here. We'll see in our other swatches if we can find a comparison or substitute for it. It is a beautiful color. I understand why people are so attached to it. But we can't have fugitive colors running around on professional palettes, right? If you don't mind light fastness issues, don't worry about any of these comments that I'm saying. That's another thing. I feel like I mentioned this in a lot of videos, but just to reiterate, a paint is not bad just because it's not light fast. If you don't need it for working for clients or selling originals, there's no reason not to use a color that isn't perfectly light fast. So if you're not familiar, I don't think I said it, this is PR 83, and they do have it listed as a cool saturated red with good transparency. Originally has some more information about it, but that it now has synthetic production since 1870. And of course, as we know from painting, that there are lots of alternatives for that color. Next up here we have Ruby Red Deep. I love this color as well. This is PR 264. It is a dark, cool red, more light and bluish than dark red. I would say this is a little bit more blue than the Alizarin Crimson, and has a little bit less of that kind of like untangible quality. There's something about the glow on the Alizarin Crimson that isn't replicated here, but the hues are very similar. Next we have Madder Lake Deep, which is PR 83, so it's Alizarin Crimson mixed with PR 177. So this is another not very light fast pigment due to the fact that it has Alizarin Crimson in it. Madder Dark Red is PV19 and PR 179. I don't know how long I've been recording because I had to stop the camera, so I don't have the timer up there. I have no idea if we're doing well or not. Alright, next we have Bordeaux, which is PR 187. And I just want to note that that's different than the Bordeaux and Daniel Smith's line. These are not the same pigments. I think, I don't know and I don't have it on the tip of my like reach here, but I think Bordeaux from Daniel Smith is PV32. It's a much more purpley tone than this one. Let's see, what does it say about this one? An intense dark red similar to alizarin, but a little bit warmer. It is transparent. I think that's a fair assessment. I feel like the Madder Lake red is closer, but again, that's because this contains actual alizarin crimson in it, so not quite an accurate statement there. Madder Red Dark, I think, is also pretty close. I think it's actually more similar. Like looking in person, I feel like this one is more similar just due to the blue undertones, but I guess depending on how you view the different pigments, that your opinion of that could change. Colors are so subjective, and I love that we can all have our different opinions about which ones we like and which ones we don't like. And again, the whole purpose of the videos for me doing these is not to entice you to buy paints. I've said that in other videos, but just so that you have the resources to make informed decisions about what colors you think that you would like to purchase, and that way you don't have to spend too much money on paints that you may not want in your collection. I have bought several tubes of paint that once I got them and I thought I wanted them, and I was like, oh no, this is not what I was expecting, not at all what I wanted to add to my palette. So hopefully this can help save you from a little bit of that. All right, Rose Madder is alizarin crimson once again, and then PR 48:4, which I can safely say I've never, ever seen. This is a traditional color. It's a soft pink mixed from two pigments, and interesting, the light resistance of stronger layers is rather good. So I think what it's saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that if you use this in its strongest versions of the color, in other words, not tinted out to be lighter, that it would have a better light fastness rating. But I don't know. I don't know for sure. Either way, I don't see myself needing that color. I feel like a permanent rose or quinacridone rose could do that job just as well. This is Permanent Carmine, which is made from PV19. And this one is a bit more opaque than I'm used to seeing this pigment. Usually this pigment is very transparent. And next door is also, the Ruby Red is also PV19. There we go. That's like a quinacridone rose type color that I'm used to seeing. It re-wets beautifully. I just feel like there's so much more saturation here and so much more range. When you tint it out, it can be similar to this color in its darker forms. I know that they're very different in the mass tone, but that would be my pick there. Next we have Magenta, and this is made from PV42. And it says that this is the basic color for Magenta in color theory. I'll have to check to see if I have any other PV42 I don't recognize. You know what? I actually think I do. I think Daniel Smith has a color called Quinacridone Pink. And I think that's the same pigment. Correct me if I'm wrong, comments. This is if I'm correct, Daniel Smith's Quinacridone Pink is a favorite of John Muir Law's. I've gone to a couple of his lectures here in the Bay Area, and that is his magenta on his palette. Or his cool red. This is Purple Magenta, and this, I have to admit, this is more of the color that I think of just in my brain as being a magenta color. This is made from PR, whoops, I dropped my pen. Dropped my paintbrush, there we go. This is PR 122. So this is our Quinacridone Magenta versus a Quinacridone Pink. At least it's in Daniel Smith's terminology. It does list, it's interesting. So in the pamphlet, let me move this over. Oh, might be too bright. So this one is listed as Quinacridone Red, this is Quinacridone Violet, and this is Quinacridone Magenta, although they have the different common names that they utilize for their series. I don't know how helpful that is, but just in case. All right, next we have Quinacridone Magenta, and that's PR 202. This is the other version. Both of these can be considered Quinacridone Magentas by their pigment names. And it's funny, they list this one as just quinacridone. There's no second word attached to it, like the red and the violet on the other page. This is a really pretty color. I think just off of pure color alone, I don't know about their mixing properties, but I prefer this PR 202. Has more richness in it. We can compare some of the information. This one is listed as being more light fast. This one is a tiny bit more opaque. Both are equally staining. This one is in a lesser price bracket, so I prefer this one, and it looks like the stats kind of favor that one, although this one is more vibrant and more pink. So if you're looking for that, that is good to know. Then we have another Quinacridone Violet. This is back to PV 19, and they just call this a red-violet mixed from one organic pigment. Da Vinci has a very similar version of Quinacridone Violet. I still don't think we've run across a color that they deem as granulating. There aren't many in these lighter ranges, although there are some of the Mayan colors from Daniel Smith that do granulate. Oh, look at that! Potter's Pink is next. And I have heard, before I put any water to this, I've heard that their version re-wets much better than Daniel Smith's, which would be a wonderful treat because Daniel Smith's is not good at re-wetting at all. And it's taking a little bit of coaxing, but it's re-wetting really nicely. This is a beautiful dusty pink color, and I don't know if I could justify giving it an entire spot on my palette, but at the same time I'm really, really curious about it and would love to work with it a little bit more. This was one of their new colors for 2017. And the pigment name for that one is PR 233. Next we have Perylene Violet. This is PV 29. This is a color that I do have on my main palette. It came in the package that I got from Schmincke at the beginning of last year and very quickly got added to my main palette. It's really, really beautiful. Right now I'm trying to see which of these colors between Perylene Violet and Naphthalide Maroon from Daniel Smith will fill this dark violet spot on my palette. Both of them are very similar. They mix a little bit differently. So I'm trying to decide which one I like better, but they're both absolutely beautiful, and I'd be happy with whichever version I think that I have in a tube on hand. This is Quinacridone Purple. This is a different pigment than the other ones that we've looked at. This is PV 55. And I think this is another new color from them, if I'm not mistaken. It's a very, very cool purple. Definitely moved on from our warm violets and then moving into our more blue realm of things. Next we have Manganese Violet. This is another granulating color made from PV 16, and this one re-wet so well. I was not expecting that. I was expecting to have to work harder for it. So kudos, Schmincke. I'm trying to find a balance between adding enough water to get them to flow and then not adding so much that I'm completely saturating the little paint swatches that we've got here. I am going to move the camera. Hope I'm not making anyone too dizzy with that. Get our last 3 rows in here, make sure that we're focused properly, and we're moving on to Schmincke Violet. I don't know if I've ever heard anyone refer to this version. This is just their dioxazine violet made from PV23, but I don't know if I've ever heard anyone refer to Schmincke Violet before. Maybe that's because they have so many other specialty colors that are preferred, I'm not sure. I've got some dioxazine violet sitting in the window right now, testing its light fastness across the different brands that I had already had. Because this is typically a color that a lot of people consider not to be light fast or have variable light fastness, and we can see here that they rate theirs as a 2. That there were some questions about it, but I've had mine in the window for 2 months now, I think. And I have only seen a tiny bit of change with Winsor & Newton's, and I've not seen any change with any other brand. So I think perhaps that worry is a little bit overhyped, and that maybe we don't need to be as concerned with that. Again, these are just my home light fastness test. It doesn't have to do with their settings or whatnot. And again, it's only 2 months versus, you know, hundreds of years, but I did see fading with like Prussian blue already that a lot of you guys have heard about in other videos or on Instagram. So compared to that one, it's not faded at all. So just throw that out there. This one is Cobalt Violet Hue, and there is no pigment name given to this one. It's just blank. But it says it's a soft blue violet, strongly granulating, and then more bluish than Schmincke Violet. So I think they're comparing this one to this one, which I guess I can kind of see. Let me pull back our exposure again one more time. Maybe that can help clear things up if it was too bright before. I can see how you'd say they're similar in hue. This one is more blue and granulating, but to me, I would use them for very different things because of those textural differences. Next we have Ultramarine Violet, which is not a single pigment. This is PV15, but it also has PB29 in it. So I believe PV15 is the typical Ultramarine Violet, while Ultramarine Blue is also added to it. And that definitely seems to be the case. It seems much more blue than a typical Ultramarine Violet would be. Then we have Delft Blue, which is Indian Throne, made from PB60. Then Indigo, which is, an interesting combination. We've got PB15:1, which is a variety of phthalo blue, with PB66, which I have not seen before. Doesn't say much about it in the comments here. Is PB66 like original indigo? Like from indigo dyes that people traditionally dye things from? I feel like I'm gonna have to pause this and look that up. Okay team, so this is the original indigo pigment, PB66, that is rated light fast in oil paints, but not in watercolors, which is why I'm guessing I haven't seen it before in other brands' versions of indigo. Schmincke is rated as a 2-star, but I do really applaud them for using the original indigo pigment, as I have not seen that before. And I know that it is a dye that is used for like textiles and things like that, but I had never seen it in watercolors before, so that was a treat. This is dark blue, and it is once again made from PB60. So the same as the Delft blue over here. And this is actually reminding me a little bit of the anthraquinone blue version of PB60 from M. Graham. Usually PB60 isn't as blue as M. Graham's version, but this one is having a good showing of saturation. So it'll be nice to see how that ends up drying. Starting our next line and our next page here, we've got Phthalo Sapphire Blue. This is the PB15:6, so this is the red shade, basically, of Phthalo Blue. It's going to be warmer than the green shades, of course. Try and get you a good range here. Then we have Cobalt Blue Deep, made from PB74. Give that just a second. It's a little bit difficult to re-wet, but here we have it saying that it is a very light, fast, deep blue, more reddish than Cobalt Blue Light, granulating. The tone and chemistry is similar to smalt blue of the late and middle age, and it's often used to paint skies and horizons. This feels very reminiscent to me of an ultramarine blue. Slightly warmer, perhaps, and with a thicker granulation pattern than I'm used to seeing. But I'm curious to see what the other versions of ultramarine look like next to this. First, we have French ultramarine, which, are we going to have 3 versions here? Yeah, we have the 3 versions of Schmincke's versions here. So this is, I said version way too many times. My apologies. Okay, this is French ultramarine. It should be the warmest version of ultramarine out of these samples. And I still stand by the statement that I feel like this Cobalt Blue Deep is very similar to the ultramarine. At least this redder version here, but with a thicker granulation pattern. Next we have Ultramarine Finest, which is Schmincke's version of ultramarine that does not granulate heavily. It does look like this one's going to be a little bit more difficult to re-wet. There we go, it's releasing some color now. And we can see that it's definitely a little bit cooler than the French ultramarine. And the Ultramarine Finest is called Ultramarine Finest because the pigment particles are ground very, very finely. And it's one of the least granulating ultramarines if you are looking for an ultramarine that does not granulate heavily. Finally, we have Ultramarine Blue. And stop. And theirs is actually made from PB29 and Phthalo Blue together. So if you want a pure ultramarine blue from Schmincke, you're going to need to go with Ultramarine Finest or French ultramarine, because the one that they call ultramarine blue does have Phthalo Blue mixed into it. Then we have Cobalt Blue Light, which is PB28. This is the pigment that you're probably more used to seeing Cobalt Teal made out of, or Cobalt Blue made out of. Also Cobalt Teal, but we haven't gotten there yet. And this version differs a lot from the other one, whereas I would say this Cobalt Blue Deep is very similar to ultramarine, and if you don't want any toxic chemicals on it, I don't think you're sacrificing anything by using a regular ultramarine. This is a different hue, so I could see a larger argument being made to use this color over an ultramarine perhaps. But still not a color that I will probably choose to have on palettes that I put together myself anyway. I'm starting to get a background here. There's too much water, so I'm just going to go ahead and coax some of this out a little bit so that we can prevent a giant bloom from happening. Might not be entirely successful. All right, and for those of us who do not want a toxic version of this chemical, oh my God, seriously, Denise, you've got to stop tripping over your words. This is cobalt blue hue, so if you don't want a toxic version of a watercolor paint, you can use this one instead. There we go. This is made from ultramarine and white. So you can see it's very, very close to the ultramarines, but they've added some white to it to cool it down a little bit, and I think that this hue sits somewhere in between the other two cobalts that they have. Mountain Blue is up next, and this is, it's our first tricolor mixture here. I'm going to leave some water in there for a second. This is made from PW5, which is, I don't believe, one of the two whites that they have. They have PW6 and PW4. And it also has ultramarine and phthalo green in it. It says that this is a traditional color mixed with white, and it results in a light fast blue for neutral soft blues. I don't feel like I learned a whole lot from reading that description. Seemed a little bit convoluted would be a bit strong to use there, but I don't feel like it was a thorough explanation of this color. It's a very subtle blue. I would definitely call it a sky blue, where you'd want a sky that isn't super, super bright. It's definitely not as bright as some of the other blues here, and I wouldn't keep that as my only blue on a palette, for sure. Interesting. Alright, then we have Cobalt Azure, which is made from PB35. So this is another version of Cobalt Blue from a different pigment. So there's 3 different single pigment varieties of Cobalt Blue, plus the hue that they offer as well. This is the lightest and brightest version so far. Of course, this is going to have like toxic chemicals in it since it is a cobalt color. However, I do like that color a lot better than the Mountain Blue. I think it's much cleaner and much prettier. Next up, we have Prussian Blue made from PB27. And I mentioned this color earlier when I was talking about dioxazine violet, and that I have done a lot of light fastness tests, including Schmincke's, and have not found it to be super stable. I wrote M. Graham, and they very kindly have been in correspondence with me and still waiting on a response back from the higher ups or from the company. I'm not really sure. From manufacturers, from pigment suppliers, I don't know. But that this pigment is very varying. V-E-R-Y-V-A-R-Y-I-N-G. And so I don't super trust it at the moment, even though it has higher light fastness ratings. Next up we have Paris Blue, which is Phthalo Blue, 2 different versions actually, PB15 and PB15:1, as well as the Prussian Blue. I've never seen this particular mixture before. It's really beautiful. But then again, you could also just have Prussian Blue and Phthalo Blue on your palette and mix them together if you wanted this color. I don't see this being a difficult color to really mix up. It's pretty though. The last one we have on here is PB15:1, which is going to be their traditional Phthalo Blue. I'm wondering... Okay, they do have a PB15:3, which is the one you see in more brands. I'm curious to read about them here. It says, this one is a traditional greenish blue hue. High tinting strengths creates very bright, vibrant mixes when mixing with yellow. And then when we get to it in just a few moments, they're going to have the, what they call heliocerulean, which is Phthalo Blue PB15:3. And that's the one we see in most brands as being represented as the green shade. Very interesting indeed. Oh no, dipped my finger in the cobalt. I think I'm gonna have to move the camera again. Come back up to the top of the page. Not quite sure how to do this now because the booklet doesn't rest nicely with this next to it. Might have to do a little rearranging. All right, so we have cerulean blue hue on the top here, made with PB15:3 and PW4. Did I say PY before when I was talking about a white pigment? I meant PW. PW5 was before. So, I mean, I'm not a cerulean blue expert, but this does not look like what I understand this pigment to look like. It is a hue, but I still feel like this is way more phthalo blue than it is cerulean. Maybe it's just a translation situation. When we get to this color, this is the color we typically call cerulean, I think. Here we have the helio cerulean, which is our PB15:3, so our typical phthalo blue. And as I mentioned, they call this a cerulean blue based on phthalocyanine pigments, specifically treated to be used for watercolors. I didn't know that it was specific to watercolor color. There's not a whole lot of pigment on there. I wasn't planning on being able to get my full swatch cards out of these, just due to how little pigment is on a lot of these, but some of them are definitely lesser packed than others. All right, here's what they call cobalt cerulean. This is PB36. And they say that this is a cobalt blue with a greenish tendency. And this is what I'm used to people calling cerulean. I think PB35 and 36 I've both seen referred to as cerulean. Although I do need to do more research. Neither is a color I use very often, and so I don't know all the technical ins and outs, but I know a lot of people have very strong opinions about which ones are cobalts, which ones are ceruleans, etc., etc. This is helio turquoise. This is the single pigment phthalo turquoise from PB16. And I feel like I've gotten to see a lot of this in a very short amount of time. So I have tried the Holbein, the Winsor, and Newton. Is that right? Maybe just, no, okay, yeah. So Marine Blue and Holbein. Winsor Newton has a phthalo turquoise. And then My Merry Blue I also had a sample of. That was the first one I ever used. And I just think this is such a beautiful color. Daniel Smith's phthalo turquoise is not a single pigment. It's made from 2 pigments, as are a lot of other brands. They don't use this pigment. So I hadn't gotten to use very many until recently, and they all seem to come in at once. This is cobalt turquoise, made from PG50. And back a while ago on Instagram, we were talking about which version of phthalo turquoise was our favorite. I'm sorry, cobalt turquoise was our favorite, and Schmincke definitely came up more than once. So this is the first time that I've gotten to see it in person, other than I saw a pan of it at my friend Jennifer Charlie's house. You guys know her. But I hadn't gotten to paint with it before. And right next door to it is cobalt green turquoise. And this is made from PB36. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous color. I love it. It's beautiful. I don't use cobalts, so I have a conundrum when I get to these cobalt turquoises because they're so, so beautiful. And I did make an exception to put a lighter cobalt turquoise on my palette, but this color is super, super stunning, and I'm so curious to know what it mixes with and if it's a useful color, because if so, it might be able to find a way into my heart a little bit. Next we have Prussian Green. And this is made from PG7 and PB60, so it's, interestingly, it's not made from Prussian Blue. It's made from Indian Throne and Phthalo Green. And this is also a super, super stunning color. For a very long time, my favorite color has been like a really beautiful, deep magenta-y purple. And recently, like over the last month or two, I've been finding myself leaning towards like really deep teals. And this is probably the closest I've seen to the color I'm referring to in a watercolor swatch. Trying to get it without the glare so you guys can see what I'm mentioning. And I hope that you can't hear that as loud as I can. I don't know what my neighbors upstairs are doing, but they are making a ruckus. All right, after Prussian Green, we have Viridian, which is probably going to be difficult to get up. So I'm gonna let that water sit there for just a second and come over here to Chromium Oxide Green Brilliant, which is also going to be difficult to lift. So we will let that water sit for a moment. So the Viridian is PG18, and that is similar to other colors of the same name. Again, some versions of Viridian, how do I say this? If you're not familiar with this already, a lot of people call Phthalo Green Viridian, which is not true. PG18 is Viridian. This is, I think, one of the least granulating versions I've seen, which makes sense because Schmincke doesn't granulate a whole lot. But it's a difficult color to re-wet. It's softer, it lifts easier. So if you want a non-staining version of Phthalo Green that granulates, then you would look to Viridian for that. Their Chromium Oxide Green, I don't know if they're going to have, yeah, they're going to have a Chrome Oxide Green later on. That's the pigment I was thinking of when I heard this name. But this is literally just Viridian and Phthalo Green together. So I'm not sure where the name comes from, but it's going to be a mixture between that Phthalo Green and the Viridian. Sorry that was confusing as I was talking out loud and thinking out loud with that. I just haven't seen that name on this version before. They call this a really good mixing color in their description. Right next door, we're going to have the proper Phthalo Green. So we've literally just got a spectrum here of Viridian, a mixture, and then Phthalo Green. Then we have Helio Green, which is PG36. So this is Phthalo Green Yellow shade. Phthalo Green Blue shade, Phthalo Green Yellow shade. And this is a color that I know a lot of you have been getting on my case about that I need to explore more. I never added it to my main palette. I know it's a great mixing color. I just have never owned a tube of it, so I have not practiced mixing colors organically from that pigment. It is on my list, it's on my radar. I promise. Someday I will be more acquainted with this color. All right, last in this row, and I do want to point this out too, I don't think I've said this exclusively. Not only does the booklet that I have over here that I'm referencing list all of the colors, they match up with the rows, so that for every 2 rows on the sheet here. It's 1 page in the book, so it's making it incredibly easy to follow along. So big kudos. I've already said that. Let's see. Big thank you to Schmincke for doing that, and having that be such a great resource to be able to compare alongside these 2 resources together. This is Permanent Green Olive. I think that this showed up in the 12 color set that I have from them. Is that an accurate statement? I don't want to make a bunch of noise crashing things around. Yes, that is correct. That is the green, along with Phthalo Green Blue shade that come in the base kit of 12 if you buy the half pan sets. And this is made from PO62, so that's one of the oranges, with PG7. These 2 greens here are very, very commonly used in a lot of green mixtures, and if you have the 2 of them on your palette, or even just 1 of them, you can get very, very far in terms of mixing your greens. All right. Moving along, we've got Sap Green, and I don't believe that I have ever tried Schmincke's Sap Green before. So, moment of truth, Schmincke. What do I think? No, I hate it. Oh my goodness. Okay, this is like a very bright spring green color, and I know other brands have a sap green in this similar tone, but it is not what I think of when I think of sap green, and not the color that I would reach for or no. You guys know how I feel about sap green, right? No offense, Schmincke. I love you. I love your watercolors, but that color is not for me. For those of you who want to know, it's made from PY153 and PG7. The sap green that I love, of course, is made from Phthalo Green PG7 and Quinacridone Gold, or one of the hues for Quinacridone Gold. It's almost as bright as this Permanent Green next door. Like, they're very, very similar. They're actually made with similar pigments as well. This is made from PY155 and PG7. So we're just changing the yellow pigment in actually all 3 of these mixtures. This is also a PG7 mixture with PY151. So remember what I said about being able to mix lots of greens if you have Phthalo Green, blue shade, and or yellow shade on hand. This is called May Green, and I know a lot of you guys like this color. It's not my favorite, but I think I prefer it to these 2 greens. Like, it has a vibrancy to it that these other 2 are really lacking. Next we have Cobalt Green Pure. This is made from PG19. It says that this is a combination of cobalt aluminum, titanium, nickel, zinc oxide. I'm pretty sure you just threw a bunch of metal pigments in there. Like, just throw all the different pigment names in there. Yeah, that's a lot of names. Don't really know what that means, but it's a very soft green. It granulates. I'm just trying to like soak it in. I haven't seen this color before, so. Is this chromium oxide? No, that's PG17. Okay. So PG19, different than PG17, which is in our next row. This is Cobalt Green Dark, and it's made from PG26. I am loving on how many single pigment colors Schmincke has. This is great, and I love that they all offer something different and unique. I think this is the color that's typically called Cobalt Green, PG26. I haven't used it myself, but I've heard other people refer to it, and it's super beautiful. I like that a lot. And this one and this one here have a lot of similarities to them, other than obviously that one is a lot more blue. Is that one made from the same? What is that called? Cobalt Green Turquoise. PG36. PB26. No, they're different. All right, now that we've fully soaked that in, sorry for my little side thought tangent thingamajigs there. Next we have Hooker's Green, which is a combination between Phthalo Blue, the 15:3 variety, and then PG7 and PY42. PY42 is Yellow Ochre. And then we've got Phthalo Blue and Phthalo Green in here. And that is what I would imagine you would get when you mix those colors together. I have not seen a hue this color referred to as Hooker's Green before. It's usually a different color, but I like this color. I think it's pretty. It's quite opaque. Make sure that we are still on the screen here. Can you guys All right, Olive Green is PB15 and PG8. PG8? PG8 is green, just green, from White Nights, and Toddy Green from Five for Art, and you might recognize it from my favorite green episode of my favorite series. I'm also testing those in the window for light fastness. This one is rated as a 2, but this color is so gorgeous. This is the, I mean, I don't know about olive green. It doesn't quite look like an olive to me, but this is such a beautiful green. Definitely my favorite version of olive green, because I'm not a big fan of the brownish versions of olive green, but super, super beautiful. It says that this is a neutral olive green with excellent mixing properties, important basic color for green in landscape paintings. And then we finally get to Chromium Oxide Green, which is the very, very mid to light toned green that is opaque. Not one of the favorites from Miss Lindsay over on the Frugal Crafter, but I know a lot of other YouTubers like this color a lot. I haven't used it a whole lot. I don't have any strong opinions about it, other than I don't really use opaque colors too often in my painting. But I think it's a nice hue. I don't mind it. Olive green yellowish. Okay, this is probably what I would normally think of as olive green. I'm trying to figure out what I've been dipping my hand in. There's some brown paint smeared here. Maybe that is the culprit. Okay, this is definitely what I would think of as olive green versus this one here, although I like that color way better. Very different though. You'd use them for very different things. It's pretty. It's a nice muted color. This one is made from PO62 and PG36. So that's one of the oranges and our Phthalo Green Yellow shade. The reason it's important to know this pigment information, I mean, you don't have to know it, it's fine, but when you're going to buy pigments, if you know that you like this color, but you already have an orange and a green that are similar to the orange and the green that go into this, you don't need to buy a tube of it unless you want it as a convenience color. But I remember I've heard people say that even Phthalo Green PG7, that they've purchased it in several different brands because they didn't know it was the same color because different brands call it different things. So for me, that's really where this pigment information comes back around, is like, I don't like to know it just for the sake of knowing numbers. It's that they help me make informed decisions when I'm going to buy pigments or mixing pigments together. I can better know the tools that I'm using, basically. So I hope that that's helpful if this is one of the first times you're hearing me mention a bunch of different pigment numbers being rattled off, or you've been hearing them rattled off on YouTube channels and don't quite know what people are talking about. Hope that's helpful. Okay, this is Green Earth, and it's a very, very soft green color. It's actually a dual color for Schmincke. I believe that this has its own pigment number. Like, Green Earth has its own pigment number in some brands. I'd have to look that up, but their version is actually made from PBR7 and PG7. So that's some version of either burnt sienna or burnt umber or raw sienna mixed with phthalo green. Not colorful, but perfectly transparent, recommended for toning down flesh tints in the portrait and nude paintings. That is fascinating. So using this color to tone down reddish and yellowish toned. I'm so curious about that now. If you've used green earth to tone down your portraits, I want to hear about it. Let me know in the comments below. I'd be curious to know if Sade or Arlisha have any thoughts on that. All right, transparent green gold is PY154 and PBR7, and I think this is a new color and I don't remember liking it. What is rattling? Why are you making noise? Yeah, I'm not a fan. I think if you're going for that type of color, just get PY129, like a green gold. I don't see a reason for that particular color. I'm not sure why my light is glaring so badly all of a sudden. Hopefully that's better. All right, to round out this row here, we have rutile yellow, which is PY53. Oh, so this is the same as the titanium yellow we did at the very start. Let me just double check that. It's interesting that they have two different versions and that they're in different sections of their paint samples. Yep, PY53. So this one here, I don't have a way of putting them next to each other, but this one here is the same as this pale yellow we did very, very first on. First color aside from white. This one is still a muted color, but this one has more warmth to it. Both of them are opaque. But I'm very curious now. There's two different versions of that. Maybe Sade can tell us more about that. Next we have One Brilliant Dark. This is PY. Why do I keep saying PY? PW. Pigment White 6. And then PY53, so white plus either this or that other version, and PBR24. PBR24 is, we're going to see it actually, and not too long. It's called Titanium Gold Ochre for them. I might actually spread that out so you can see it ahead of time, so when we're going over these combinations that have it in, you can see it for reference, because it's not a super common color. But like I mentioned, Schmincke sent me a couple tubes along with the 35 color sheet that I did earlier in 2017, and this was one of the colors they sent, so I have been using it and I added it to my main palette actually. I don't know if I'm going to keep it after it runs out, but it's definitely an interesting color that I do find use for. Maybe not as often as yellow ochre, but it's interesting. So if we come back to this color here, One Brilliant Dark is a combination of white, one of either the rutile yellow or the titanium yellow, and the titanium gold ochre. Very opaque colors here that we're finding. This is Naples yellow, which is going to be the exact same combination of pigments as the One Brilliant Dark, but in a different ratio. I would imagine that it has more of the PBR24 in it, although they are still listed in the same order. So has the most white, then yellow, then titanium gold ochre regardless. Then we've got raw sienna, and theirs is a combination between PBR7 and PY43. Typically, raw sienna would just be made from PBR7, but a lot of companies do use PY42 or 43 for their version. I can tell you right now, I prefer this way more than their yellow ochre. I have their yellow ochre in their base set of 12 half pans, and I do not care for that color at all. We're going to get to that, let's see, here in the row. But first we have yellow raw ochre. So that's interesting. A brilliant yellow ochre from natural earth pigments, light, transparent, very good light fastness. I'm wondering if they have these transparent versions of yellow ochre or raw sienna, why on earth they put their yellow ochre in their sets of 12, because it is not a color I enjoy at all. But these ones are quite lovely. This is a very transparent yellow ochre color. It's made from both PY42 and PY43. But you can see it's not covering up that line. And here's the yellow ochre. It's just a really heavy, muddy version of a color that can be really beautiful and useful. Not a fan. I would much rather have either of these colors. Alright, working with different constraints here. I'm running out of room to push my page up on the desk, so we're going to have to switch over to moving the camera soon. Hopefully this is the last time I do this to you. I apologize. This is quite a behemoth of a swatching video though, so thanks for sticking with me if you're still here. Alright, this is the one that I feel like there's hardly any pigment on this swatch at all. I don't know what we're going to get out of it, and it looks really hard. So I'm going to leave that little dot on it, and we're going to come back to it, because who knows what we're going to get out of that. That's transparent ochre, and that's made from PY42. I think that's one of their new colors. So if you want to check out the 35 color swatch sheet for a better sample of it, you know what? I'm probably not going to put it up here. I'm probably going to forget, so I'll put it in the description below though, and you can go ahead and check that out if you want to see a better sample. Depending on what we get off of here, maybe it'll be fine. Then we have raw umber, and their raw umber is very, very light. Typically raw umber will be, well, I've seen both. But typically when people refer to raw umber, they're referring to the darker, cooler version, and this is a very yellow, earthy version, I guess. Not a huge fan, but I've heard it is useful. I don't know why Naples yellow is thrown in here. Maybe because it's more red versus more yellow. But Naples yellow reddish. Not a fan. This is what some companies sell as like a Caucasian skin tone, but you can mix a color better than this. It's heavy, it's opaque, it's too red for most people. Alright, let's see how our transparent ochre swatches out for us. Looks like we'll get enough for the swatch. It's fine. I'd rather use one of the other ones. Now that these have dried a little bit more too, you can see the difference between these ones. This is definitely the most brown version of it. But this one is just has like more of a weight to it that I can't quite put into words. It just feels heavy to me. I think this is called Spinel Brown. This is made from PY119. I think this is a fairly unique pigment to Schmincke, at least in the watercolor world. I really like it. I think it's a beautiful color. It's described as being an opaque, warm, toffee brown This is Gold Brown, made from PY65 and PBR41. PBR41, I don't think I've heard that before. So many things for me to research after this swatch video. It's a beautiful, rich, bright brown. Very orange. I'm so curious to know what PBR41 is. I won't stop the footage again and interrupt our stream of consciousness here. All right. Next up is Transparent Sienna. This is made from PR101, so this is going to be similar to like Winsor Newton's Burnt Sienna or Transparent Red Iron Oxide from some companies. Be a very rich, reddish, orangish brown color. Definitely not in the same vein as the Burnt Siennas made by like Daniel Smith. We have, let's see, do we have 2 more pages left? Yeah, down to the final stretch here. So this is Maroon Brown. It says NBR with no number. So it just says earth pigment. Granulating warm brown, darker and warmer than Burnt Sienna. Not sure what that means. I started to say don't know what that means and not sure what that means at the same time, which kind of canceled each other out, unfortunately. This is what you guys get when I do these long swatching videos and I've been talking to myself for hours. I don't know what I'm saying anymore, although I didn't know what I was saying at the beginning of the video, so I don't know. I hope you like it. See me get it a little bit loopy here towards the end. This pigment definitely doesn't have very good flow. I didn't want to swatch out into the swatch very cooperatively. Alright, and then we have Burnt Sienna, which, oh, did I know this about Schmincke? They don't have a PBR7 Burnt Sienna. They have a PR101 and PBK9. Whoa. I think Van Gogh's Burnt Sienna is a combination of pigments similar, if not identical to that, but this is not Burnt Sienna. It's beautiful. It's a very rich color, and if it wasn't called Burnt Sienna, I might be excited about it. But, as you all know, one of my big pet peeves is, and it's just a pet peeve, if you're annoyed with me that I'm saying this, you can just tune me out and come back on the next color, but I have a big pet peeve about people calling Burnt Sienna when it is not. And I have a bigger pet peeve with people adding black to Burnt Sienna. It's real weird to me. This also has PBK9 in it, which is ivory black, which if you're trying to stay away from, well, all of these pigments contain oxgall in them, so they're not vegan, but this one specifically contains ivory black, which is from charred animal bones, which it does point out very clearly in the guide here. So if you want to stay away from that, by all means, do so. Here we have English Venetian Red. And this is going to be PR101. It's an opaque color, and one of the only opaque colors that I like and use often. Again, you might be confused. This color and this color are made from the same pigment number, but they're processed differently. So one version is transparent for whatever reason. Maybe someone can explain that in the comments below who understands better than I do. And this one is more opaque. This is a very red version of this color. I've seen browner versions, and my favorite is M. Graham's Terra Rosa. But it's still a pretty color. This is the color that comes in like the burnt sienna slot of their 12 pan set. And I was really disappointed at first, but when I started using it for paintings, I really came around to it. I did a really cool guanaco painting, which is like a llama, as part of my demonstration for using the Schmincke watercolors, and I will put that link in the description below as well if you want to go ahead and check in on that. That was the first time I had really used that pigment before in a painting. This next one is Madder Brown, and this is made from PR206. It's a Quinacridone color. They specifically say that it is a good color for portraits as well as nude paintings. Not sure why the distinction, but good to know, Schmincke. Next we have Transparent Brown. That isn't transparent. That's a weird name for this color. It is made from... Hey, this is PBR 41. We were questioning that before. I didn't know what it was, so this is that color. Let me read a little bit about it once I have this swatched out. It's pretty. It reminds me a little bit of PBR 25 with a little bit more oranginess and a little bit more opacity. It says, this is a modern brown, transparent when applied in thin layers, reddish alternative to burnt sienna. And actually, I would agree with that. I do like this color better, I think, than burnt sienna, which, in its defense, has really mellowed out since it dried. This has become more brown for sure, but still is more on the orange side than I would prefer. But yeah, this is really nice. Has a deeper richness to it. I know it's still red and orange and you might be like, Denise, you're being a hypocrite, but I do think that that has more richness to it, which is typically what I look for in a burnt sienna. We have Mahogany Brown next, which is a granulating color, PBR 33, and it's described as a strongly granulating dark red brown. That is really pretty. It's opaque, but I like the tone. It's got kind of like a purpley undertone almost. All right, next is Indian Red, and they make theirs with PR101 and PR206. It is a violet, deep red-brown. Synthetic pigments create a high tinting strength and opacity recommended for landscapes and portraits. This might be closer to what I'm thinking of for like the... Nope, it's not. Okay. I was thinking maybe this was going to be more like the Venetian red that I was thinking of, but it's much more purple. It's a gorgeous color though. You can see the Venetian red has really flattened out since it's dried, whereas this one will have more granulation in it. I'm like immediately fascinated by this color. I want to paint with that one. It looks really pretty. Reminds me a little bit of a raw umber violet. Next is Mars Brown, and this is actually one of the new colors that I do have on my Schmincke palette because it was another tube that they had sent to me to try out. And I use it kind of as my middle brown with those colors that I have, more so I think than I use the transparent sienna or the Venetian red. Maybe not more than the Venetian red, but definitely more than the transparent sienna. It has some granulation to it, provides a little bit more depth, and it's made from PBR 6. It's like a cousin of PBR 7. All right, we have transparent sienna, is that right? Transparent umber. Sorry, I lost my place. I was reading two different things at once. Transparent umber is made from PR101. It's a warm brown and a transparent alternative to burnt umber. I guess it's warmer than a burnt umber. Oh no, okay, there we go. Once it released some of its pigment, I was more on board. This is actually really pretty. If you want a non-granulating burnt umber, I think this is it. We'll see how it dries, but that's really, really pretty. You can definitely see when you know that it's made from PR 101, you can see that influence. You can see that it definitely has that smoothness that that pigment has, but it's really nice. And here's burnt umber. And their burnt umber is made from PBR 7, as it should be. It's going to be cooler. And I guess their version isn't listed as being a granulating color. As we talked about, Schmincke is a pretty good brand if you don't like granulation. They mill their paints very finely in general. So if granulation bothers you, check it out. All right, so these two, they're saying that this is a replacement, and you can see why I hesitated to call it a replacement. It's much more brown, or reddish brown. This color, more so, no, I don't know. This still reminds me of the PBR 25 a lot. This one also reminds me of PBR 25, but a little bit more brown. Both are beautiful colors, but they're not quite burnt umber. Then we have green umber, also made from PBR 7. I'm going to guess I'm not going to like this color. I'm going to give it some time to reactivate here. It is a granulating, very greenish, dark brown, similar to Van Dyke, but lighter and more transparent. Ideal for landscapes. I think I just love warm colors too much. This is not a color that appeals to me. And perhaps it has its uses, but I don't think I would find one for it. What are you doing, bug? Get out of here, we're filming. My goodness. All right, then we have Van Dyke Brown, which my favorite version of Van Dyke Brown, and I don't know how accurate it is to the historical makeup, is actually made from Mission Gold, and it's PBR 7, and I think it's actually similar in tone to this one, maybe a little less green. I think it's NBR 8 otherwise, or NBR 7, one of the two. When we looked at Holbein, it was that NBR pigment. This one is a combination. It's PY 150, PBR 7, and PBK 7. So it's a triple mixture, which I think that's only, yeah, I was going to count our triple mixtures so far because there haven't been a whole lot of them, but we're about to come upon a bunch, so I won't. I don't think, actually looking at the recap here, I don't think I ever told you what pigments this one was made out of. I'm sorry. This is PY6P. Oh my god. Why can I not say this letter? W. PW6. PW4. PR2. 42 and PY42. So this is a 4 pigment blend, and I think that's the only one in their entire line, which Naples Yellow Reddish or Juan Brilliant Reddish from other companies are often 4 pigments as well, but it's a lot. It's a lot to handle, a lot to mix. Okay, I need to move this up a little bit. We have Sepia. This is going to start to get long with all the different mixes because there's a bunch of them, but it's Phthalo Blue, PBR 7, some version of that, and PBK 9. So this is another one that has animal pigment in it. If you want to try Schmincke and haven't seen my vegan watercolor painting review and want to stay vegan, first off, I do recommend the watercolor video. I did a lot of research for that, so there's a lot of information in there. But Schmincke Academy paints are all vegan as well, and they use a different black pigment and they don't use oxgal. So That would be one way to try Schmincke if you don't want to support the animal aspect of it. Then we have sepia brown reddish. This is PR 242, PBR 7, and PBK 9. So similar, but instead of a phthalo blue, we're using a red shade. Well, if I'm going to pick between these sepias, I like the second one better. Once again, sepia is a cool color and I prefer warm colors. I know that cool colors have value in palettes and I have added a raw umber to my palette, but I just think the warm colors are so beautiful. We have neutral tint, which is made from PR 122, PB 60, and PBK 7. So that's really bizarre that they have a neutral tint that is made with a black, because typically you use neutral tints to avoid adding black to your pigments. It's also very purple, so unless it dries a lot more neutral, I wouldn't call this a neutral color. It's definitely leaning towards purple. It's a beautiful purple, like a beautiful deep moody purple, but I'm not sure that I would call that neutral. Let's see what it says. A traditional violet gray, mixture of violet, red, blue, and black, recommended for first layers and for deepening greens. So it looks like maybe there's just a disconnect with the name from what I'm used to hearing it as. They describe it as a violet gray, which I would say is accurate, and it's useful for deepening greens, which I think it would be fantastic for. But maybe not a broad spectrum neutral tint. This next one is called Neutral Gray, and this is made from PBR 255, PB 60, and PO 62. It says this one specifically is a neutral gray from complementary colors without black. So I don't know how this would go in terms of mixing with other colors, because I obviously haven't tried that yet, but from the description alone and the color here that I'm seeing, this might be more of what I'm used to seeing as a neutral tint color, where you can mix it into other colors, but it doesn't specifically say what its uses are for. They describe the Payne's Gray Bluish as a internationally requested bluish variation of Schmincke's Payne's Gray, which is down here. So we'll see both of those here pretty soon. I don't know why they're not next to each other. This is a very blue Payne's Gray. Like, I mean, they call it bluish, but they're not kidding. Daniel Smith released a bluish Payne's Gray, and it is not this blue. Perylene Green is a new one for them and one of my favorites. I interchangeably use Schmincke or Daniel Smith. I don't mind switching between the two brands. This one appears to be a bit more green versus more black. It's an almost black color, but if we tint it out here, you can see that it's definitely got green in it. That pigment is PBK 31. And my apologies, the bluish Payne's Gray is made from PBK 6, PB 15:6, and PB 15:2. So two different versions of phthalo green, including one that I've never seen before, PB 15:2. So that's interesting. All right, our Payne's Gray seems to be much, much more neutral. And this is PR 101, PB 29, and PBK 7. Very interesting that they don't list it as granulating, given that it has ultramarine in it. I wonder if the other pigments in it cause it not to granulate as heavily. Traditional Schmincke Neutral Gray, mixture of red, blue, and black, slightly cooler than neutral tint. I mean, I think those are very different colors. This is clearly like a purple gray, and this is more gray / black. All right, we've got lamp black here. This is PBK6. This is pure carbon, recommended for first layers. I'll have to try that sometime. And if I'm going to have a black, this is the one I will go towards, given that it is not made from animal products, for me personally. Although ivory black is the more common color and the one that is used in the Schmincke Horadam 12 color set. As I mentioned before, the Schmincke Academy set does use this lamp black for their black instead of this ivory black that we're seeing next here. This is the one that's made from animal products. It's warmer than the carbon black or the lamp black. Let's see, what did they say about it? Very deep black, formerly made from carbonized ivory, nowadays produced by dry distillation of degreased bones, small quantities of calcium phosphate, and add a slightly bluish gray tone, often used for dark tones and color turbidity. So, I don't know. I still prefer lamp black. Here's hematite. It's made from PG7 question mark? Have I done this before? Have I seen hematite and question why it was made from a green pigment? Or is this a typo? Or is this unique to Schmincke? I would definitely call this a gray before I'd call it a black. It doesn't get as rich to be a black. I suppose I can see some green undertones, so maybe it's like a burnt version or something. It has no information here other than saying a granulating soft warm black. It does share in common with PG17 that it granulates, so maybe I'll have to look into that. I don't know how to say this one. Anthracite. It is also listed as lamp black as a common name. It's PBK7. It's also a carbon black. So both PBK6 and PBK7 are carbon blacks. It says it's a brownish gray black pigmented with lamp black. I don't know how to interpret that given that it only says it has one pigment in it. And then we also have graphite gray, which I originally thought was original to Schmincke because I hadn't seen it in another brand, but Daniel Smith also has one now as well. And this is a gray color that definitely dries with like a graphite feel to it. I don't know if it's actual graphite just ground into paint or if it's a pigment that's made to resemble graphite. The pamphlet calls this an opaque dark gray, particularly suitable for combinations with pencil or for mixing, and it's made from PBK10. All right, we have just a little bit more. These are our specialty colors slash metallic colors slash fluorescent colors slash one extra black. So real quick, I'm going to go ahead and put dots on our metallic colors because they are going to be harder to re-wet. And then we'll go ahead and come over to our Mars black. This is PBK11. And it's a very granulating brownish black according to the pamphlet. It's definitely on the warmer side of things. First we have silver, which I know you're not going to be able to see very well, but it re-wet really, really nicely actually. I'll hold it up once I do the gold one as well. think someone recently asked me about a gold recommendation. I haven't been able to get back to you yet, or maybe by the time you see this, I will have gotten back to you, but they asked for a recommendation for me on gold paint. I don't feel like I'm a good authority on that because I don't use gold paint very often at all. The one that I do use on a semi-regular basis is Kramer's. Victor sent that over to me quite a while ago. I still owe him and all of you a review on those Kramer pigments, but so far that is the most experience that I have with gold paint, and because I haven't used a whole lot of other ones, I'm not really comfortable saying which ones are best. This one definitely doesn't seem quite as pigmented, but it might just need more time sitting with the water on it. I know a lot of metallic pigments really benefit from having water soaking on them for a couple minutes prior to painting with them. This is none other than Opera Rose, and I feel like my eyes are going to fall out of my head. It's an incredibly bright color, probably way more vibrant than the camera can even pick up. And none of the other colors, including like the Rose Madder, can hold a candle to that. It literally does not have a light fastness rating on it. There's nothing there. Actually, along with the Brilliant Purple, the Brilliant, like all four of these fluorescent colors do not have light fastness ratings on them. So yeah, they're pretty bright. Oh, okay. Specifically, it says without evaluation of light fastness. All of these colors, it's like a copy paste, pure and vibrant, not achievable by mixing, and without evaluation of light fastness for all four of these remaining colors. These first two are made from PR 122. It doesn't list another pigment, but it does say the words fluorescent pigment. This color is beautiful. I really like that one, but it's very similar to the other PR 122 that has a higher light fast rating. So I'm not sure. Sorry, I dipped my finger in the black. I'm not sure that I would be willing to trade like an unevaluated light fastness for, where are we? There we go. For the one that is light fastness rating, but if you're just journaling or doing sketchbook work, again, light fastness does not matter in that situation because one, you're not selling it, and two, in a journal it's going to be closed, or in a sketchbook it'll be closed, so you don't have to worry about that. This is Brilliant Red Violet. I don't know if I'd call it red violet. I guess it leans more red, but it's very, very purple. Also a beautiful color. I'm not sure what it is about Opera that I just really don't like this color, but these other two are lovely. This one is made from PV55 and a fluorescent pigment, or a version that's fluorescent. So this is the same as the Quinacridone Violet that we saw earlier. This one is noticeably different though. Whereas this one was similar to the main pigment that was listed on it, I don't feel like that purple is the same at all. It was much more vibrant. And then we finally have Brilliant Blue Violet, so another violet but leaning on the blue side. And it's saying that this one is made from PV29, PV23. This must be plus a fluorescent pigment because those two colors are not fluorescent. I don't know about the other ones, but so it must be mixtures of the pigments that we commonly know plus fluorescent mixtures. I know I just repeated that twice, but I guess I just really wanted to reiterate my thoughts on that. But if you have different information, let us know. I'm not an expert in these fluorescent pigments and I don't use them on a regular basis. So, all right, everyone. Well, we got through our 140 dot card from Schmincke, although I do believe it's 139 if I can count properly. But we went through the range that they have to offer on this sheet, and it was really fun looking through all the spectral colors, followed by the earth tones and the kind of different colors that we have here. I did promise you a look at these metallic colors. I forgot to show that to you up close a little bit earlier. But I will go ahead and take pictures of this dot card and put them up on my Patreon. You don't have to be a patron to see them, but I will go ahead and put a post there so that there's kind of a landing page if you want to take a closer look at the colors here. Let me know in the comments below if you enjoy Schmincke, and if so, what some of your favorite colors are from them. I definitely found some new favorites that I am so interested in trying out. Some that really jump out at me are like the Prussian green, the cobalt green turquoise. I really like this Indian red. I already used the Perylene violet and the Perylene green, and I mean there's just so many really pretty colors here. The manganese violet is really gorgeous. The potter's pink rewets really beautifully. And so basically what I'm trying to say is I am so excited to finally see all these colors from Schmincke in person, and I hope that swatching these out with me was helpful for you as well in making your buying decisions. Thank you so much to Oto for sending these to me. I am so grateful to her for all that she has done. I will of course do this sommelier in another video, and in the meantime be sure to go ahead and check out her new channel. I'll put a link in the description below. Thank you guys all so much for watching, for commenting, for liking, and for subscribing if you would like to see more, and hitting that little bell icon if you'd like YouTube to notify you of the videos when they come out. So thank you so much. I will see you again in a couple of days for a new video, and until next time, happy painting.